Every great adventure begins with a whisper. For me, that whisper was a dream of a place called Tonga. It grew slowly, nurtured by curiosity about our world. It was a longing to see beyond familiar horizons. This journey was about answering a call. Tonga was more than just a pin on a map. It represented a challenge and a promise. The idea took root, becoming a quiet obsession. The distance seemed part of its magic. It was about pushing my boundaries and stepping outside my comfort zone. It was a quest for clarity and a simpler way of being. The dream evolved into a concrete plan. It was to be a slow passage through the world with Tonga as its guiding star. This is the story of how I set out to chase that horizon. Of all the places in the world, why Tonga? The question echoed in the minds of my friends and family, and sometimes even in my own. The answer lies in its unique allure, a magnetic pull that sets it apart from other tropical paradises. Tonga is not just a collection of beautiful islands. It is a kingdom, one of the last remaining monarchies in the Pacific. This fact alone hints at a rich tapestry of history and tradition, a culture that has remained resilient and proud. The name given to it by Captain Cook, the Friendly Islands, was not just a historical footnote. It spoke of a spirit of welcome and warmth that I felt drawn to, a genuine connection that I hoped to find. My fascination deepened as I learned more about this archipelago of over 170 islands, most of which are uninhabited. I pictured pristine landscapes untouched by mass tourism, a place where nature still holds sway. I dreamed of swimming with humpback whales, gentle giants that migrate to Tonga's sheltered waters to give birth. This wasn't just an item on a bucket list. It was a desire for a sacred encounter, a moment of connection with the wild heart of the planet. The idea of sailing through these scattered islands, each with its own character and story, filled me with an incredible sense of adventure. It was the promise of true exploration. Beyond the natural beauty, it was the Tongan way of life, known as Whaka Tonga, that truly captured my imagination. I read about a society built on strong community bonds, deep respect for family, and a more relaxed concept of time. In a world that often feels rushed and disconnected, the Tongan philosophy seemed like a precious lesson waiting to be learned. I wanted to understand what it means to live in a place where wealth is measured not in money, but in relationships and shared experiences. This journey was about more than just seeing. It was about learning, listening, and hopefully understanding a different way of viewing the world. So, the choice of Tonga was deliberate. It was a choice for authenticity over glamour, for culture over commercialism, and for connection over simple sightseeing. It was a destination that promised not just stunning scenery, but also a journey into a different rhythm of life. The call of the Friendly Islands was a call to my soul, promising an experience that would be as enriching as it was beautiful. It was the perfect anchor for my endless journey, a destination worthy of the long and winding path it would take to get there. It was the heart of the adventure, the reason for every mile I was about to travel. An endless journey needs more than a physical map. It needs a map of the heart. My path to Tonga was never going to be a straight line. The journey itself was the true destination. I envisioned a route that would meander across seas and continents, a slow and deliberate unfolding of the world before me. I wanted to feel the distance, to appreciate the vastness of our planet. The journey was designed to be a story, with each stop being a new chapter. This philosophy meant embracing uncertainty. Instead, I had a direction, eastward, towards the rising sun. This freedom was both exhilarating and terrifying. It required a level of trust in the world and a belief that the right path would reveal itself. This method of travel was intentionally slow, designed to immerse me in the journey itself. This was about experiencing the in-between places. Ultimately, this map of the heart was about personal growth. It was a map designed to get me lost, so that I could find a new version of myself. The goal was not simply to arrive in Tonga, but to arrive transformed by the journey. Embarking on this journey required a promise, to embrace the unknown. There would be fear and uncertainty, but I vowed to push through, seeing them as part of the adventure. This meant letting go of control and accepting unexpected changes with patience. Embracing the unknown also meant being open to people, saying yes more often. The most memorable parts would come from human connections, trusting in the goodness of people. Finally, I promised to document my journey, capturing the emotions and lessons for myself. This reflection would ensure the journey's impact lasted a lifetime. Every epic story has a beginning. My endless journey to Tonga began on a cool, gray morning with the simple act of closing my front door. Standing on the pavement with my backpack, the world felt immense. The first leg was a train ride to a port city. Every field, every town, every river felt like a farewell. Arriving at the bustling port was a sensory overload. The smell of salt and diesel, the cry of seagulls, the deep horn of a departing ship. It was the symphony of the journey to come. As I stepped onto the gangplank, my heart was pounding. The journey had officially begun. The road was endless, the destination far, but the first step had been taken. Before any journey can begin, there is a process of letting go. For me, this was about a great downsizing, a deliberate shedding of a life's accumulation. My apartment became a testament to how much I owned and how little I truly needed. Every object held a memory. It was a slow and often painful process of untangling myself from my possessions. I created 3 piles: keep, donate, and discard. The donate pile grew rapidly. It was liberating to see these things go. The journey required me to be light. Stripping my world down to the essentials was like peeling an onion. With each layer removed, I got closer to the core of who I was. I was choosing to leave them all behind for an experience. In the end, my life fit into a few storage boxes and a single backpack. The echo in the empty rooms was not one of sadness, but of potential. The great downsizing was complete, and I had never felt richer or more prepared for the road ahead. With my life downsized, the next challenge was to master the art of the pack. How do you fit a world of possibilities into a single bag? My backpack was to be my home, my closet, my office. Each item was scrutinized for its weight, its durability, and its versatility. The philosophy was simple: pack for the person you want to be on the road, resourceful, adaptable, and unburdened. I had to trust that I could find what I needed along the way, that the world would provide. This minimalist approach was a core principle of the journey, a physical manifestation of my desire for a simpler existence. Finally, the bag was packed. Looking at that single bag, I saw not a limitation, but a symbol of ultimate freedom. My world was now portable, ready to be carried on my own 2 shoulders towards the horizon. Preparing for an endless journey is as much an internal process as it is an external one. I knew my body would be tested by long treks, heavy loads, and unfamiliar climates. So I began a physical training regimen months in advance. I practiced yoga to improve my flexibility and balance. Simultaneously, I worked on calming my mind. I began a daily meditation practice. I took a wilderness first aid course. I practiced basic navigation with a map and compass. Forging my body and calming my mind was about building a realistic, robust foundation. Before setting sail on the actual ocean, I had to navigate a sea of paperwork. This was the least glamorous but most essential part of the preparation. The journey to Tonga was not a single trip, but a series of border crossings, each with its own set of rules and requirements. I spent weeks buried in visa applications, poring over the websites of embassies and consulates. Each form was a puzzle, each question a potential pitfall. I created a meticulous spreadsheet to track expiry dates, entry requirements, and proof of onward travel. This bureaucratic marathon was a test of patience and organization, a stark contrast to the free-spirited adventure I envisioned. It was the necessary price of admission to the world. My passport, once a slim booklet, began to fill with visa stickers, each one a promise of a new land to explore. I made multiple certified copies of all my important documents: passport, birth certificate, and international driving permit. I also scanned everything and saved it to a secure cloud server, creating a digital safety net. I learned about the nuances of travel insurance, finding a policy that would cover me for an extended period across multiple countries, including emergency medical evacuation. These were the tedious but vital tasks that would allow me to travel with peace of mind, knowing I had a plan for the practicalities of being a global citizen. Beyond the official documents, I delved into the charts and maps that would guide my physical journey. I wasn't just looking at countries. I was studying shipping lanes, monsoon seasons, and major ocean currents. I researched the schedules of cargo ships and long-distance ferries, sending emails to obscure shipping companies and trying to decipher replies in different languages. This was a treasure hunt for information, piecing together a logistical puzzle that spanned half the globe. These charts were more than just navigational tools. They were the blueprints of my dream, translating an abstract desire into a tangible, albeit flexible, plan. The whispers of the sea were starting to take on a concrete form. This paper sea was also a source of incredible excitement. With every visa approved, with every potential route discovered, the journey felt more real. It was no longer a distant fantasy. The stamps in my passport were the first tangible evidence of the adventure to come. The highlighted routes on my maps were the first steps on the endless road. Navigating this complex bureaucracy was a challenge, but overcoming it was a victory. It proved that I had the determination and attention to detail required for such a grand undertaking. I had successfully charted my course through the administrative waters and was now ready for the real thing. Knowing that my journey would take me through countless cultures and languages, I knew that English alone would not suffice. While I couldn't become fluent in every tongue, I made a commitment to learn the basic courtesies for every region I planned to visit. I spent evenings with language apps and phrase books, practicing the simple words that build bridges between people. Hello, goodbye, please, thank you, and sorry. I focused on the pronunciation, repeating the phrases until they felt natural. I knew my accent would be clumsy and my grammar non-existent, but I believed that the effort itself would communicate respect and a willingness to connect, opening doors that would otherwise remain closed. More important than verbal language, however, was the universal language of the body. I studied the nuances of nonverbal communication in different cultures. I learned that a thumbs up can be offensive in some parts of the world, that pointing with a finger is considered rude in others, and that the concept of personal space varies dramatically. My goal was to become a more conscious observer, to watch and learn before I acted. The most important phrase I learned to communicate in any language was a genuine smile. I practiced smiling at strangers in my own city, realizing its power to disarm, to welcome, and to convey kindness without a single word. I also prepared a small, laminated card with simple icons, a picture of a bed, a bus, a toilet, a fork and knife, a question mark. This was my emergency communication tool, a way to get my basic needs across when all else failed. It was a humble admission that I would often be helpless and reliant on the kindness of others. This small tool was a reminder to stay humble, to not let the frustration of a language barrier turn into arrogance. It was a bridge of last resort, a simple way to ask for help. Preparing this tool was an act of acknowledging my own vulnerability, which I knew would be an essential part of the journey. Ultimately, my preparation was about cultivating an attitude of open and respectful communication. It was about understanding that connection is a two-way street. I promised myself to listen patiently, to not get frustrated when I didn't understand, and to use gestures and expressions to convey my meaning with warmth and good humor. I knew that the most meaningful interactions would transcend language, occurring through a shared meal, a moment of laughter, or a simple act of help. The language of smiles and gestures would be my true mother tongue on this endless journey, allowing me to speak the universal dialect of human kindness. Saying goodbye is a season, a slow chorus of farewells. In the weeks leading up to my departure, my life became a series of last times. The last coffee, the last family dinner, the last walk. My farewell party was a chance to bring everyone I loved together, to thank them, and to create one last memory. My friends made a scrapbook, a tangible piece of home. The final goodbyes were the hardest, heavy with unspoken emotions. This chorus of goodbyes was the final, necessary ritual before the journey could truly begin. Their love was not an anchor, but the wind in my sails. The last 24 hours in my home country felt surreal, as if I were moving through a dream. Time seemed to warp, stretching and compressing in strange ways. The morning was spent on final checks, a meticulous review of my backpack and documents. I ran through a mental checklist one last time. Passport, tickets, visas, insurance details. Everything was in order. My apartment was now completely empty, stripped of all personality, echoing with the ghosts of my former life. I spent a few moments sitting on the floor in the silence, letting the reality of the moment sink in. This was it. There was nothing left to do but wait for the dawn. The afternoon was a deliberate exercise in calm. I took a long, slow walk through the city, not to see anything in particular, but to absorb the feeling of it one last time. I watched the familiar rhythm of daily life, the commuters rushing home, the children playing in the park, and felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were already a visitor. I was in this world, but no longer of it. I found a quiet cafe and wrote a final letter to myself, sealing it with instructions to open it on the one-year anniversary of my departure. It was a time capsule of my hopes, fears, and intentions, a message to my future self from the person I was on the brink of becoming. That evening, I didn't want to be surrounded by the emotion of another farewell. Instead, I chose solitude. I ate a simple meal and watched the sunset from my window, a familiar spectacle that suddenly felt brand new and deeply poignant. It was the last sunset I would see from this vantage point for a very long time. As darkness fell, a profound sense of peace settled over me. The anxiety and frantic energy of the past few weeks had dissipated, replaced by a quiet, steady hum of anticipation. I had done everything I could to prepare. All that remained was to surrender to the journey. Sleep was surprisingly easy to find. I laid out my travel clothes for the morning and set my alarm for an early hour. Before closing my eyes, I looked at the world map taped to the wall, my finger tracing the long, winding path towards the tiny dot in the Pacific that was Tonga. It didn't seem so far away anymore. It felt like a magnet, pulling me forward. The final 24 hours were not a countdown to an end, but the quiet, deep breath before the plunge. It was the moment of stillness on the diving board, the world poised and waiting, just before the leap. The alarm clock chimed, but I was already awake. This was the first morning of my new life. Getting dressed felt like putting on a costume for the role of a world traveler. In the dim light, I shouldered my backpack, my turtle shell containing my entire world. I took one last look around the empty apartment and then turned towards the door without looking back. Stepping out onto the street was like stepping into a different world. The world felt clean, new, and full of promise. I was heading to the train station that would take me to the port. As the sky began to blush, my heart swelled with excitement, fear, gratitude, and pure joy. The sun was rising on the day of my departure, illuminating a path that stretched out before me. Arriving at the industrial port was a jarring transition. The air was thick with the smell of salt and industry. The scale of everything was immense. My vessel, a working cargo ship named the Stellanova, was not exactly a thing of beauty. Finding my way through the security gates was intimidating. Climbing the steep metal gangplank was a symbolic ascent. With each step, I was leaving the solid, predictable land behind. I found my small Spartan cabin. Ropes were cast off from the bollards with a heavy splash. The ship began to move almost imperceptibly at first. The gap of water between the ship and the shore widened. The landscape of my home country started to recede. As the ship cleared the harbor and met the open sea, the motion changed. The coastline became a faint, hazy line, then a smudge, and then it was gone. There was nothing in any direction but the vast expanse of the water meeting the sky. The journey had begun. Life aboard the Stellanova settled into a hypnotic rhythm, dictated by the sun and the sea. My world shrank to this floating steel island. The constant thrum of the engines became the heartbeat of my existence. This was a slow, meditative start, a decompression from life on land. I'd wake with the light, watch the sunrise, and spend hours on deck mesmerized by the waves. Meals were with the crew, men of few words. A camaraderie grew from our shared isolation. The ship became a landscape to explore. This time at sea was a lesson in scale and humility. It was the perfect transition before the adventures to come. The ocean revealed infinite variety. I watched flying fish burst from the surface. At night, bioluminescent plankton turned the water into a liquid galaxy. With no light pollution, the celestial display was unlike anything I had ever witnessed. I saw sperm whales surfacing. A droplet of seawater held a universe of microscopic life. A single sunset painted the sky with a masterpiece of color. The open ocean had become my greatest teacher, revealing a world of complexity and beauty. After 2 weeks, the sight of land was a shock. The smudge resolved into green volcanic peaks. The first port was a small, bustling harbor. The Stellanova was docking for 12 hours, giving me a brief window to step onto solid ground. The port was a chaotic symphony of sounds and smells. It was a sensory assault, a sudden immersion into a new culture. The short visit was a perfect appetizer, a glimpse of adventures ahead. It was no longer just a dot on my map. It was a real place. The Pacific is not always Pacific. Several days later, the weather turned. The sky grew dark and menacing, and the sea transformed into a churning, angry beast. During the storm, a wave sent me tumbling. I landed hard, twisting my ankle. Rico, a Filipino sailor, found me. He gently helped me back onto the bunk. He expertly examined my ankle and wrapped it. His gentle touch spoke volumes. As the storm subsided, Rico and other crew members looked after me. In my moment of crisis, I depended on the kindness of strangers. It was a test I passed thanks to a sailor's compassion. Leaving the cargo ship behind, my transport shifted to local ferries. The salt-stung buses of the sea, connecting scattered communities, often old and crowded, laden with passengers, livestock, and cargo. Schedules were more of a suggestion than a rule. I was the only foreigner on board, an object of gentle curiosity. Families shared food and played cards. A woman offered me grilled fish, and soon I was surrounded by a small group. Each island we stopped at was a unique little world. The ferry was their connection to the outside world. The journey was about the connections made at each stop. It was travel at its most authentic. It allowed me to see the true fabric of the region, immersing me completely in my new environment. Navigating daily life on the smaller islands was a constant adventure in communication. My small phrasebook was a helpful start, but honestly, it was no match for the rapid-fire conversations and thick local dialects I encountered. There were countless moments when I found myself utterly lost in translation, unable to ask for what I needed or understand the answer given. In a small village market, I once tried to ask for a bottle of water and ended up being presented with a live chicken, much to the amusement of the vendor and everyone standing nearby. My initial frustration quickly gave way to the absurdity of the situation, and I found myself joining in their hearty laughter. These moments of confusion became a source of connection rather than division. I learned to let go of my pride and embrace the role of the bumbling but well-intentioned foreigner. Laughter became my most useful tool. When I pointed at a strange-looking fruit and asked for its name, my mangled pronunciation would often send the seller into fits of giggles. But they would always patiently repeat the word for me, their amusement tempered with a genuine desire to help. These interactions were small but significant victories, turning potential moments of frustration into shared experiences of good humor and human connection, building a bridge across the language gap. One evening, I got lost trying to find my way back to the small guest house where I was staying. The sun was setting, and the winding village paths all looked the same. I tried to ask an elderly woman for directions, using a combination of hand gestures and the name of the guest house. She listened intently, nodded, and then took me by the hand, leading me not to my guest house, but to her own home. She sat me down and presented me with a bowl of warm, sweet porridge. We sat in comfortable silence as I ate, her hospitality needing no words. Afterwards, she walked me all the way to my door, ensuring I was safely home. This experience, and many others like it, taught me that communication is about so much more than words. It is about intention, expression, and the willingness to be open and vulnerable. My inability to speak fluently forced me to rely on other senses, to pay closer attention to body language, tone of voice, and the atmosphere of a situation. I learned that a smile, a shrug, or a shared laugh could convey more meaning than a perfectly constructed sentence. Being lost in translation was not a barrier. It was an invitation to a different, more intuitive, and often more joyful form of understanding, one that was found in the universal language of kindness. While my days were often filled with rich human interaction, the evenings and the long stretches of travel between islands brought a different kind of challenge: profound solitude. This was a loneliness unlike any I had ever experienced before. It wasn't the simple absence of people. It was a deeper sense of being disconnected, a solitary traveler moving through cultures and places where I had no history and no deep roots. In the quiet of my small guest house rooms, with only the sound of geckos on the wall for company, the sheer distance from everything familiar would sometimes hit me with a crushing weight. The excitement of the adventure would momentarily fade, replaced by a sharp pang of homesickness. I had prepared for this, but the reality was more intense than I had anticipated. There was no one to share a private joke with, no one to debrief the day's experiences with, no familiar shoulder to lean on. Every decision, from what to eat to where to go next, was mine alone. This constant self-reliance was empowering, but it was also exhausting. I had to be my own cheerleader, my own confidant, and my own source of comfort. There were nights I would simply sit and look at the photos of my family and friends, feeling the thousands of miles that separated us as a physical ache in my chest. To combat this, I developed new routines and rituals. I wrote extensively in my journal, pouring out my feelings and observations, turning the pages into a silent companion. My daily meditation practice became a vital anchor, a dedicated time to sit with my feelings of loneliness without letting them consume me. I learned to find solace in the natural world, taking long walks on deserted beaches at sunset, finding a sense of connection in the rhythm of the waves and the vastness of the sky. These practices didn't eliminate the loneliness, but they helped me to hold it, to understand it as a natural part of such a journey. Ultimately, this profound solitude became a crucible for self-discovery. In the absence of external voices and distractions, I was forced to listen to my own. I got to know myself in a way that is impossible when you are constantly surrounded by the familiar. I learned to enjoy my own company, to find contentment in quiet observation, and to draw strength from an inner well I didn't know I possessed. The challenge of solitude was immense, but it was also a gift. It stripped me down to my core and then taught me how to rebuild myself, stronger and more self-aware than before. It was a difficult but necessary passage in my endless journey. The challenges of the journey were not always external. On a particularly rough ferry crossing between two remote islands, I fell ill. It started with the familiar misery of seasickness, but it soon morphed into something more serious. A fever took hold, leaving me weak and shivering despite the tropical heat. My body ached, and I was overcome by a debilitating nausea that left me unable to eat or even drink water. Stranded on a rocking boat in the middle of the ocean, I felt my resilience beginning to crumble. The physical sickness was miserable, but it was the accompanying vulnerability and fear that were truly difficult to endure. Once we reached the small island, I stumbled to the nearest guest house and collapsed into bed, where I remained for the next 3 days. The world shrank to the four walls of that simple room. The vibrant, adventurous journey came to a screeching halt. Lying there, weak and alone, my mind began to spiral. Doubts that I had successfully kept at bay now flooded in. Was I being reckless? Had I completely overestimated my ability to handle this? The physical illness seemed to trigger a sickness of the soul, a crisis of confidence that was more painful than the fever. I felt defeated, fragile, and very, very far from home. The owner of the guest house, an elderly woman named Mele, became my quiet guardian. She must have realized I was more than just tired. She would appear at my door several times a day with a gentle knock, leaving a tray with a cup of hot, fragrant herbal tea and a small bowl of plain rice. She never intruded, but her consistent, silent care was a lifeline. She didn't speak English, and I was too weak to even attempt her language, but her compassion was a powerful medicine. Her simple acts of kindness reminded me that I was not completely alone, that a thread of human connection still held me, even in my weakened state. Slowly, the fever broke and my strength began to return. As I took my first tentative steps outside, the world seemed brighter, the colors more vivid. Surviving this illness on my own, supported by the quiet grace of a stranger, was a turning point. It was a harsh reminder of my own mortality and the real risks of my journey, but it also proved my own resilience. I had faced a deep low, both physically and mentally, and I had come through it. The experience left me humbled and more grateful for my health and strength. It was a baptism by fire, a sickness of the sea and soul that ultimately cleansed me and fortified my resolve to continue. As I journeyed deeper into the Pacific, I became increasingly fascinated by the traditional methods of navigation. I met an old fisherman who spoke of how his ancestors navigated the vast ocean without compasses or charts. He explained how they used the stars, the ocean swells, the flight patterns of birds, and the subtle changes in watercolor to find their way between tiny, unseen islands. It was a holistic and deeply intuitive way of knowing one's place in the world, a science woven together with artistry and immense respect for nature. He taught me to identify key navigational stars and to feel the direction of the underlying ocean swell, a constant pulse that ran beneath the surface waves. This ancient knowledge resonated deeply with the internal journey I was on. I realized that I too was learning to navigate without a precise map. My initial plans and schedules had long since dissolved, replaced by a more fluid and intuitive approach. I was learning to navigate by a different set of stars, the metaphorical stars of kindness, opportunity, and gut feeling. A chance conversation might set me on a path to an island I had never heard of. A gut feeling might tell me to stay longer in a village or to move on. I was learning to trust these subtle cues, to read the signs the world was offering me. This new method of navigation was not always easy. It required a letting go of control, an acceptance of uncertainty that went against my nature. There were times I felt adrift, unsure of my direction or my next move. In these moments, I would think of the ancient navigators. They did not fight the ocean. They worked with it. They read its moods and respected its power. I tried to apply this philosophy to my own journey, learning to be patient when delayed, to be open to unexpected detours, and to see challenges not as obstacles, but as the ocean's way of redirecting my course towards an unforeseen and often better destination. My journey across the seas and islands became a dual act of navigation. On the outside, I was moving from point to point, island to island, getting ever closer to the shores of Tonga. But on the inside, I was navigating the vast ocean of my own inner world. The real stars and the metaphorical ones became my guides. They taught me that the most important journeys are not about following a pre-drawn line on a map, but about learning to read the currents of life, trusting your own internal compass, and having the courage to sail towards the horizons of your own heart, even when you cannot see the land ahead. The final ferry ride felt different. This was the final crossing into the heart of Polynesia, the Kingdom of Tonga. And then, there it was. It was the main island of Tongatapu. As we drew closer, the details began to emerge. The shoreline was a ribbon of brilliant white sand. The endless journey had found its anchor. Seeing it with my own eyes felt like the culmination of a great pilgrimage. It was a melody of welcome from the kingdom. The long voyage was over, and a new adventure was just about to begin. Stepping onto the solid ground of Nuku'alofa, the air was thick and sweet, a fragrant blend of tropical flowers and salt. It was the perfume of the South Pacific. A woman placed a lei of fresh frangipani blossoms around my neck. "Malo e lele," she said softly. "Welcome." It was a perfect embodiment of the warmth and hospitality. My host family greeted me with warm hugs, treating me as a long-lost relative. That first evening was spent sipping on cool coconut water. I knew my journey had brought me to a very special place. Life in Tonga moves at a different pace, a gentle, unhurried rhythm known as Whakatonga, the Tongan way. Whakatonga is built on strong community and family ties. The family unit is the cornerstone of society. Children were cared for by the entire village, elders were treated with profound respect, and resources were often shared. This culture of respect creates a peaceful and safe atmosphere. Living by the rhythm of Whakatonga taught me the value of slowing down and prioritizing people. It was a profound and necessary antidote to the frantic pace of modern life. Whakatonga is a gentler, kinder, and more connected way of moving through the world. The Tongan approach to life is perhaps best expressed through its food and the communal act of eating. The Tongan table is not just about sustenance, it is about celebration, generosity, and sharing. My first experience of a traditional Tongan feast, or umu, was a spectacular event. The umu is an underground oven where food is slow-cooked for hours on hot rocks wrapped in banana and taro leaves. The entire village seemed to be involved in the preparation. Men dug the pit and tended the fire, while women prepared the food, a whole roasted pig, fish, yams, sweet potatoes, and lu, which are delicious parcels of corned beef, onions, and coconut cream cooked inside taro leaves. The unveiling of the umu was a moment of great excitement. The aroma that rose from the earth oven was smoky, sweet, and utterly mouth-watering. The food was laid out on long mats woven from pandanus leaves, creating a stunning and abundant banquet. There were no individual plates or cutlery. Everyone simply gathered around the mats and ate with their hands, a tactile and communal experience that broke down all barriers. The flavors were incredible, rich, earthy, and infused with the subtle smokiness from the underground oven. The roasted pig was succulent, the root vegetables were tender, and the lu was a creamy, savory delight. It was a true feast for all the senses. Everyday meals were simpler, but no less delicious, and always centered on fresh, local ingredients. My host mother would often return from the market with fresh fish, which she would marinate in lemon juice and coconut cream to make a refreshing dish called ota ika. We ate breadfruit, either roasted or fried, and a wonderful variety of tropical fruits like mangoes, papayas, and pineapples that were bursting with flavor. Food was never wasted, and it was always shared. If a neighbor caught a large fish, a portion of it would be distributed among the surrounding families. This spirit of sharing and abundance was a core part of daily life. More than the food itself, it was the act of eating together that I will always remember. Meals were a time for connection, for storytelling, for laughter, and for reinforcing the bonds of family and community. I was always served first, as the guest of honor, a gesture of hospitality that was both humbling and heartwarming. The Tongan table taught me that food is a language of love and a cornerstone of culture. It is a way of expressing welcome, celebrating life, and weaving people together. Breaking bread, or in this case, sharing roasted yam, with my Tongan family, was one of the most profound and joyful experiences of my entire journey. Tonga is unique in the Pacific, a kingdom that was never formally colonized by a European power. This proud history is a palpable presence, echoing through the islands and shaping the national identity. In Nuku'alofa, I visited the Royal Palace, a beautiful white Victorian timber building that stands gracefully near the waterfront. While visitors cannot enter, its presence is a constant reminder of the kingdom's enduring monarchy. I learned about the revered Queen Salot Tupu III, who ruled for 47 years and guided Tonga into the modern era while fiercely protecting its culture and sovereignty. Her legacy is spoken of with immense pride and affection by Tongans of all ages. The history of Tonga stretches back much further than its modern monarchy. On the island of Tongatapu, I explored the Ha'amunga a Maui, a massive stone trilithon dating back to the 13th century. Often called the Stonehenge of the Pacific, its purpose is still debated by historians, but it stands as a powerful testament to the incredible engineering skills and organized society of the ancient Tongan Empire. Standing beneath these massive coral limestone slabs, I felt a deep connection to the distant past. It was a humbling reminder that I was walking on land that had been the center of a powerful maritime empire long before the first European ships arrived on the horizon. I also visited the Langi, the terraced royal tombs of the ancient kings. These enormous multi-tiered stone platforms are impressive feats of construction, built with a precision that is staggering. They are sacred sites, places of deep historical and spiritual significance. Walking among them in the quiet afternoon, I could almost hear the voices of the past, the whispers of a powerful dynasty that once ruled a vast expanse of the Pacific. These ancient sites are not just tourist attractions, they are a vital part of the Tongan soul, a link to the ancestors and a source of immense cultural pride that has been passed down through generations. This living history sets Tonga apart. It is not a culture that exists only in museums or history books. It is present in the respect shown to the current king, in the stories told by village elders, and in the very landscape itself. The echoes of the past are not faint. They are a strong and resonant part of everyday life. This unbroken line of history and tradition provides a powerful sense of identity and stability. Exploring these historical sites gave me a much deeper understanding of the Tongan people and the resilience that has allowed their unique culture and kingdom to endure for over 1,000 years. The wonders of Tonga are not confined to the land. Below the surface of its impossibly clear turquoise waters lies another kingdom, a world of vibrant coral reefs, breathtaking underwater caves, and gentle marine giants. I knew before I arrived that one of the most extraordinary experiences Tonga offers is the chance to swim with humpback whales. These magnificent creatures migrate from the frigid waters of Antarctica to the sheltered warmth of the Tongan archipelago every year to mate and give birth. This sacred cycle transforms the waters into a temporary nursery for one of the planet's largest and most graceful animals. The day I went out on the water with a licensed and respectful whale-watching operator was one of the most anticipated of my entire journey. After hours of searching, we finally spotted them, a mother and her newborn calf, resting near the surface. Slipping quietly into the water, my heart pounding, I was careful to keep a respectful distance. And then I saw them. The sheer scale of the mother whale was impossible to comprehend. She was a living mountain, an ancient and intelligent being, and she floated effortlessly in the deep blue. The calf, playful and curious, stayed close to her side. There are honestly no words to adequately describe the feeling of sharing the water with these creatures, a profound, soul-stirring mix of awe and humility and overwhelming peace. Beyond the whales, Tonga's underwater world is a paradise for snorkelers and divers. I spent days exploring the coral gardens that teem with life. The reefs were a kaleidoscope of color, with intricate coral formations providing homes for countless species of brightly colored fish. I swam alongside sea turtles that moved with a slow, ancient grace, and watched schools of shimmering fish dart in and out of anemones. In some places, I explored underwater caves and tunnels where shafts of sunlight pierced the darkness, creating an ethereal, cathedral-like effect. It was a silent, magical world that felt completely separate from the one above. This aquatic kingdom is a vital part of Tongan life and culture, providing sustenance and a deep spiritual connection to the ocean. The Tongans have a profound respect for the sea and its inhabitants, a relationship built over centuries of dependence on its bounty. My time spent below the surface gave me a new appreciation for the fragility and beauty of this ecosystem. It was a powerful reminder that the health of the ocean is inextricably linked to the health of the island and its people. The underwater realm was as much a part of the Friendly Islands as the land itself, a place of wonder, life, and giants. Ngatu, or tapa cloth, is an iconic Tongan art form made from the inner bark of the paper mulberry tree. The laborious process is deeply communal, passed down through generations. The inner bark is stripped, soaked, and beaten with wooden mallets. The rhythmic beating echoes through villages as women gather. The strips widen and fuse together in a symphony of shared work. Decorated with traditional patterns and natural dyes, the ngatu tells stories and marks events. It's a valued fabric used for clothing, bedding, and gifts. More than fabric, it symbolizes identity and the strength of collective effort. Sunday in Tonga is a day of rest. Shops close, the streets fall silent, and the whole country pauses. The morning is for church. Everyone dresses in their finest, and the singing is breathtaking. Afterward, families gather for a feast, sharing laughter and stories, strengthening bonds. The quiet is profound, a collective pause that centers life on faith and family. Lying in a hammock, listening to distant hymns, I felt a peace deeper than I'd ever known. In Tonga, Sunday isn't an inconvenience, it's a beautiful reminder of what truly matters. As my time in Tonga ended, I realized I was no longer a stranger. My host family became my own, neighbors greeted me by name, and I was woven into daily life. Simple acts, shared meals, saved mangoes, laughter, transformed me from observer to participant. Home, I learned, is where you're accepted and connected, no matter how far from where you began. Leaving was hard, but I carried gifts and memories, knowing Tonga would always be a part of me. The greatest discovery wasn't a place, but the feeling of finding a home among strangers. My journey to Tonga mirrored a deeper internal voyage. Every challenge, storms, loneliness, illness, became a landmark on my inner map. I learned to navigate by emotion, not geography, discovering resilience and self-awareness. The solitude brought clarity. I saw my fears and values stripped of outside influence. I left changed, not by the world, but by a new way of seeing myself and my place in it. The real journey was inward, a map I'll keep drawing for the rest of my life. The journey taught me strength in surrender. Letting go of control, accepting help, yielding to Tonga's rhythm, wasn't weakness, but liberation. In moments of vulnerability, like during the storm, I found connection and trust. True strength, I learned, is in interdependence and knowing when to let go. Surrender isn't giving up, it's trusting the current to carry you where you need to be. That quiet confidence is now my guide. Before, my identity was built on routines and roles. Travel shattered those mirrors, forcing me to ask, who am I, stripped of labels? Anonymity freed me to experiment, to discover resilience and kindness within myself. My new self-image is forged from experience, not possessions or titles. I am now defined by adaptability and quiet confidence, not by what others see. The journey didn't erase my reflection. It revealed my truest self, at home anywhere in the world. When I first set out, my backpack felt like a heavy burden. For the first few weeks, the physical weight was a constant preoccupation. As the journey progressed, my relationship with my backpack began to change. I realized the most important things I was carrying were not physical objects at all. The true weight was in the intangible things I was accumulating along the way: kindness, lessons, and memories. My physical backpack started to feel lighter. By the end, my backpack had transformed into a symbol of freedom. I had learned that what we carry on the inside is infinitely more important than what we carry on our backs. The true weight of my journey was the accumulation of human connection, personal growth, and unforgettable moments. I embarked on this journey with a fairly conventional idea of what adventure meant. I pictured dramatic landscapes, thrilling activities, and heart-pounding moments of facing down danger. I thought adventure was something to be sought out, a series of bucket list items to be ticked off a list. My early days were driven by this pursuit of the spectacular, the adrenaline rush that comes from pushing physical boundaries. I was looking for the big moments, the stories that would sound impressive when retold. This definition of adventure was exciting, but I would soon learn that it was also narrow and incomplete, missing the subtler, more profound aspects of a true journey of discovery. My time in Tonga and the slow, meandering path it took to get there completely redefined the word for me. I began to understand that adventure is not always loud or fast. Sometimes it is quiet and slow. I found adventure in the challenge of sitting in silence with my own thoughts for days on end aboard a cargo ship. I found it in the courage it took to be vulnerable, to admit I was lost or sick and needed help. The real adventure was not in climbing a mountain, but in overcoming the mountain of my own pride and fear. It was in the thrill of making a genuine connection with someone from a completely different world. The most profound adventures were often the most mundane-seeming moments. The adventure of trying to communicate in a market and succeeding only in sharing a moment of laughter. The adventure of sitting with a Tongan family on their porch, listening to stories I barely understood, but feeling the warmth of their inclusion. The adventure of learning to see the world through their eyes, to appreciate a slower, more community-focused way of life. These small, intimate encounters were the moments that truly challenged my perspectives and changed me in lasting ways. They were not epic in scale, but they were deeply transformative, which is the very essence of a true adventure. I now believe that adventure is not something you go out and find, but a mindset you cultivate. It is the willingness to be open, to be curious, and to see the potential for discovery in every moment. It is about embracing uncertainty and finding beauty in the imperfections of the journey. Adventure is the quiet thrill of understanding a new word, the courage of tasting an unfamiliar food, and the deep satisfaction of earning a stranger's smile. The endless journey taught me that the greatest adventures are not measured in miles traveled or risks taken, but in the moments that open your heart and expand your understanding of what it means to be human. Looking back on the entire arc of my journey, the most persistent and resonant theme is not the beauty of the landscapes or the thrill of the challenges, but the quiet, consistent, and overwhelming power of human kindness. From the sailor who tended to my injury during a storm to the market vendor who laughed with me at my linguistic blunders, my path was paved with small, unsolicited acts of grace. These were not grand, heroic gestures, but simple human-to-human connections that, when woven together, created an unbreakable safety net that held me throughout my entire voyage. This journey was a testament to the fundamental goodness that exists in people all over the world. I had set out with a certain degree of caution, a defensive shield built from stories of scams and dangers that travelers often hear. But my experience taught me that while it is wise to be aware, it is a tragedy to let fear close you off from the world. The vast majority of people I met were not interested in taking from me, they were interested in sharing with me. They shared their food, their homes, their stories, and their smiles with a generosity that was both humbling and inspiring. This constant exposure to goodwill slowly dismantled my defensive walls, replacing them with a sense of open-hearted trust in the world and its inhabitants. The echoes of this kindness still reverberate within me, shaping how I move through the world today. It has become a kind of internal compass, guiding my own actions. The woman in Nuku Alofa who placed a lei around my neck taught me that a small gesture of welcome can change a person's entire experience. The host mother who saved me the best piece of fruit taught me that love is expressed in the smallest details. The family who shared their Sunday feast taught me the profound joy of simple hospitality. These lessons were my most valuable souvenirs, and they instilled in me a deep desire to pay that kindness forward in my own life, to be a source of that same warmth for others. This journey reaffirmed my faith in humanity. In an age where news cycles are dominated by conflict and division, my personal experience was one of unity, connection, and compassion. The kindness I received was a universal language, spoken fluently in every port, on every island, and in every village. It was a gentle but powerful reminder that despite our different cultures, languages, and traditions, we are all connected by a shared capacity for empathy and grace. The echoes of that kindness are the sweetest and most enduring melody of my endless journey, a song of hope that I will carry in my heart forever. Arriving in Tonga felt like the end of the journey, but as I prepared to leave, I realized the journey is never truly over. Tonga was not a finish line, but a gateway. The spirit of discovery, once ignited, does not simply extinguish itself. It transforms every horizon into a new invitation. This spirit of discovery is something I now carry into my everyday life. The journey taught me that discovery is not limited to exotic, faraway places. The horizon has become a powerful symbol for me. There is always more to learn, more to see, more to understand. So, while this particular chapter of my travels has concluded, the book of my journey remains wide open. The spirit of discovery is now my compass, and the unending horizon is my map. The greatest gift the journey to Tonga gave me was the understanding that the most rewarding journeys have no end. They simply transform, evolve, and continue to call us forward towards the next beautiful, unknown horizon. The journey's presence lingers, like the ocean's echo. It reminds me of the vastness I traversed, the rhythmic memory of the cargo ship's engine, the waves, a soundtrack to my reflections. This oceanic echo speaks of immense scale. It reminds me of my smallness, a lesson in humility. This perspective has remained, a tool for navigating life. The echo carries voices like Tongan women's harmonious singing. These human sounds create a symphony of connection. The journey shaped me, leaving an indelible mark. The ocean's echo is the endless part of my endless journey. When you return from a long journey, people often ask what souvenirs you brought back. I did bring back a few tangible items: a small, beautifully painted tapa cloth, a necklace of polished shells, a woven pandanus mat. These objects sit in my home now, and I treasure them as physical links to the places I visited and the people I met. They are beautiful, but, I have come to realize that they are not the most important things I carried home with me. The truest and most valuable souvenirs from my endless journey are not the ones that can be held in my hands or displayed on a shelf. They are the souvenirs that I carry within my soul, invisible, weightless, and honestly, infinitely precious. One of these souvenirs is a newfound sense of patience. Another souvenir I cherish is a deeper capacity for empathy. Perhaps the most significant souvenir of the soul is a profound sense of gratitude. This gratitude is not a fleeting emotion but a permanent state of being, a lens through which I now view the world. My journey evolved through 3 stages: tourist, traveler, and human. Initially, I was a tourist, focused on destinations and capturing sights. Interactions felt transactional, creating a barrier to genuine connection. As a traveler, I embraced the journey, prioritizing experiences and connections. Finally, as a human, the lines dissolved, revealing our shared humanity. The goal isn't just to see the world, but to find our common ground within it. The return flight home was a strange experience. After months of slow travel, I was now hurtling through the sky. This rapid transition felt like a jolt from one reality to another. I felt a new kind of loneliness, a person out of sync with the world around me. The journey home was not about slotting back into my old life, but integrating the lessons of my travels into a new one. It was a journey forward, valuing relationships, and finding moments of quiet amidst the noise. In fact, a new and equally important chapter began. The journey home is a journey forward. This story is an invitation for you to listen to the whisper that is calling your own name. It might be the call of a mountain, a language, or a skill. We all have our own Tonga, our own shore of personal growth. Embrace curiosity and courage in your circumstances. It can begin with a single small step. Open yourself to seeing the world in a new light. So I invite you to look towards your own horizon and honor that call. Start today. Take that first, small, uncertain step onto your own endless road. As I sit here now, sharing this story with you, I am still on that journey. The physical travel to Tonga may be a memory, but the internal voyage it ignited continues with every breath I take. The spirit of discovery has become my constant companion, my internal compass that guides me through the landscape of everyday life. I have learned that the world's most beautiful maps are not printed on paper, but are written on the heart, and they are constantly being redrawn with every new experience, every new connection, and every new lesson learned. The horizon is not a fixed line in the distance. It is a promise of all that is yet to come, a perpetual invitation to keep moving forward. This documentary, this collection of words and images, is my attempt to share a piece of my map with you. It is my ingatu, my tapa cloth, painted with the stories and emotions of my travels. It is my offering, my way of paying forward the immense kindness and wisdom that was so freely given to me along the way. If this story has inspired even a flicker of curiosity or a spark of courage in you, then my journey has found a new and beautiful purpose beyond my own personal growth. It has become a shared story, a connection between my journey and the beginning of yours, and that is a truly wonderful thing. I want to thank you for joining me, for walking this path with me, for sailing these seas, and for feeling the warmth of the Tongan sun. Your time and your attention are a gift, and I am deeply grateful for them. I hope you have enjoyed this glimpse into a small corner of our incredible world and the journey it inspired. Remember to be kind to one another, to stay curious, and to never lose your sense of wonder. The world is a magnificent and beautiful place, full of good people and extraordinary adventures. waiting just beyond your doorstep. The journey is truly endless. So, if you have enjoyed this adventure, please like this video, share it with someone who dreams of their own horizon, and subscribe to the channel for more stories from the road. The greatest adventures are the ones we share, and I look forward to sharing many more with you. Until then, may your own journey be filled with joy, discovery, and endless possibility. Malo Alpito, thank you very much. The endless journey continues.